word out and get this party started, hopefully. I don't see myself moving. Give me just a moment here. Seriously, camera? Are we doing this really tonight? Hey, Beans! Oh my goodness. Let's get some adjustments in here. This is not the right camera. This is. Good Lord. All right, y'all. Welcome to the Bonnet Chronicles. I'm going to put the word out. Thank you so much for all your patience last week with me. I needed a mental health break. I was exhausted mentally, and it all catches up to you. And I've told people all the time, I know I'm not one of these big streamers or anything, and I know there are a lot of people that are struggling to try to find their place on this channel and on YouTube. Mental health breaks are important. Don't push yourself to try to be famous or try to call people into watching you. If you're not feeling it, it translates. And last week I was not feeling it, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to give a decent cast if I tried it. So I took a much needed break, and I am feeling much better. I think a lot of people don't put their mental health first, and it's a shame, especially right now during the winter. It's real easy for my moods to go all over the place. So I decided to put my mental health first and take a break. So I thank all of you who were patient last week for knowing I couldn't do it. And I will be having the Bonnet Chronicles next week on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve because they're Fridays. And, Team Shut In. I'm not planning to do anything big the next 2 weeks anyway. So yeah. But it is the year in review 2021, and there was so much that went on this year that there was no possible way I was going to be able to do it all in an hour, all at once. So, this is part one. And there are a lot of things that I do want to touch upon on top of talking about some of the things that happened this year because a lot of you have limited memory. And I'm not talking about using the chat and like Beans and so many others, Terry and so many people have been in my chat all year long. Use know when I say use, I'm not referring to you. But we might get new people tonight. So when you hear me say you, if it doesn't apply, let it fly. And if it applies to you, maybe shut up and listen. Because maybe you'll learn something. Exactly, Beans. But it's been a crazy year, and there's a lot to combat because misinformation seems to be a very lucrative field. And Twitter has been a cesspool. So I've been taking a break from it because when I'm on there, if it's not people, doing anything for attention, it's the people who are literally using their platform to spread social misinformation, political misinformation. You got people in journalism already predicting the midterms being a loss for the Dems. And it's like, the only way we lose is if people forget that not even a year ago, we had an idiot who downplayed a pandemic to the point where over 600,000 lives were lost. It is because of this new administration, some of the things that rolled out just in January of this year, why we are not in the millions dead. But some of you don't want to think about that. And that's why I have to do this year and review the right way. That's why I'm going from January 1st to June. I'm going to pause at June. We'll do from June till December in the next one. But too many journalists and people that I used to respect working for publications like the One Cat, working for publications like the New York Times, people that I thought really cared about doing their job in a way that, reported news, kept misinformation to the bay. Instead, they used their personal Twitter account to not only speculate on something that you don't have a crystal ball, you don't know. And even if you do, why would you use your voice to tell people, well, the Democrats are going to lose anyway? I said it before and I'll say it again. I don't trust anybody who swears that they're on the side of good, who spends more of their time naysaying, doom crying, and making us all feel like it's not worth it anyway. And there has been a lot of them doing that. Oh, and we're going to talk about AOC and the Justice Den. As a matter of fact, my friend Greg had this amazing thing posted up there. He calls them the Sinister Six, the Democrats who voted nay on infrastructure, the usual suspects, as I like to call them. It is so annoying dealing with those squad goons, Justice Dems, those type of people. They get on my nerves. They all waste the seats, and we have to do what we can to not only replace them, but to start replacing GOP people who think they're a bit too safe, who think they can traffic young minors and have inappropriate sexual relationships with young minors. Looking at Matt Gaetz, he's on this list. Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Bobbitt, two of these, I don't even see how they became elected officials. I don't even think both of them could read. And it's just frustrating that you got these positions being held by these people who will put their hands on the Bible, hold the gun, and act like they're red blooded, patriotic Americans as they do nothing but ingratiate their pockets. And they are a big problem. So I am gunning for every Justice Dem. I am gunning for every GOPer. If you are a waste of a seat as a rep or a senator, consider your job on the line, because we can organize around them. But we have to work against all of those who are using social media to spread apathy and misinformation. It is our biggest threat to our democracy right now. Social media should have been so much more of a hubbub for factual information. It should have been better for those of us who wanted to organize politically. But so many people push their feelings. And being a diverse party like the Democrats is, you have to deal with factions. And that was a big part of 2021 too. I don't know how many factions I still had to, well into this year, argue with, because they were still salty that their pick, who didn't even have a chance in hell of being president, didn't get picked. And some of them realized with their fave what was at stake, looking at the Pete Buttigieg fans. But there are still a lot of you out there that just never learned your lesson. And it's troubling because you are already trying to push misinformation against this current administration. You're already trying to sideline our first female Black and Asian VP, and I'm tired of it. But I'm going to get 2021 started up because, like I said, there was just so much. January alone, I had to weed through this because there was just so much that went on. You started off with COVID taking over 500,000 lives. And I don't know about you, but these last 2 years have really opened my eyes to just how crazy this world can be. Losing family, losing close friends, losing friends that I was hopeful to one day meet up with and get to talk and actually do stuff with has really shown me that life is precious. And we had an administration before our current one that thought, well, I can just fire the people who are overseas, making sure stuff like this doesn't happen. I can downplay what's going on so that people don't blame me for it. I can do everything to be non presidential as possible. And it's what I said last year, and I mean it. COVID was karma. It was karma for all of those who thought, oh, Trump won't be a bad president, even though he's incompetent, even though he didn't know what the fuck he was doing at all, even though people around him were being fired left and right, even though the only people who liked him were just as criminal and awful as he is. And since common sense wasn't going to make people get out to vote, I really feel like this beyond past due viral issue was our wake up call. And I still can't believe in the year 2021, after having such a wake up call that we are still dealing with on a global basis, that people are still not ready to do their bare minimum civic duties to save our democracy. And January should have been your eye opener, not just because of the Capitol riots that happened on the 6th, but because that idiot got impeached. And because the Senate was still under then McConnell's control until we got Ossoff and Warnock in that runoff, they let the idiot go. You knew he was the reason why his ridiculous cult like followers stormed our Capitol on the 6th, put police life in danger, actually took lives, and lost a few of their own. There was an idiot who got arrested and is being charged with trying to sell Nancy Pelosi's laptop to the Russians. These are the kind of people that were storming our Capitol on the 6th because they didn't think the election was fair. Their guy was busy calling up states, trying to get them to cheat. Other people had a playbook to try to launch a coup. We're finding out all about this because Merrick Garland and the DOJ, instead of making Twitter posts and being in interviews, are doing their job. But some of you would rather listen to a wonket journalist or some New York Times hack talking about, oh, the DOJ ain't doing anything. Or Joy Reid, who wants to call Merrick Garland names and put his face on a milk carton. The fact of the matter is, people have been getting indicted, arrested, and convicted since January. In fact, because I like getting facts, not just fiction, let me find Homegirl's name because she was one of the first. On January 17th, Riley June Williams, a 22-year-old, 22, she's fucking young. She's a baby to me. 22 years old, accused of, so let me put that out there because you don't want these people are so happy. She's accused of it, stealing Nancy Pelosi's laptop during the Capitol 6 riot. She's been charged by the FBI with the intent to steal and sell the device to Russian foreign intelligence. But according to some people who want to speculate online, nothing's being done. Stuff was being done even before we got Merrick Garland appointed. Because it's not going on in front of you, because it's not a freaking Law and Order episode, you're not going to see everything. But rest assured, my list is very thorough. There are a lot of convictions on here. It's just very frustrating because January should have been, and it really was for a lot of us, a more positive time. January 18th, we watched MVP resigned as a senator. Alex Padilla replaced her, which I know a lot of people were salty about. I know a lot of people wanted a black woman to fill Kamala Harris's spot because we don't have a lot of black women in these positions of power, and we need to be. We need more black women senators. We need more black women reps, but we need to vet them. It can't just be anyone. And I'm going to get to why that is as we go down this list, too. But watching that historic moment, seeing Joe Biden sworn in, especially since the last Chronicles, I told you how that one white woman tried me talking about, oh, they're not going to be sworn in. Trump is going to stage a coup. I waited. She never apologized to me either. Because I knew. I knew she was talking out her ass because doomsaying is lucrative. We watched as Joe Biden and Kamala Harris was sworn in. And I don't know about you, but the swell of emotion that welled up in me, the swell of emotion listening to Amanda Gorman give that amazing speech, seeing a poet laureate that when I was little probably would have never, ever got the opportunity. And I want to see more of that. And this was an administration of so many historic firsts. Pete Buttigieg being the first open LGBT cabinet member as our Secretary of Transportation. Deb Harlan appointed as our first Secretary of the Interior, first Native American to have that position in a country that basically stole from my people, brought my other people over in bondage. And now we are seeing them rise to positions in leadership that can help us all. And some of you want to just get rid of that because chaos is more profitable to you. And I am not going to allow it. I am not going to keep up allowing this garbage to be the norm, this cycle of fuckery. It's just so frustrating, y'all. I don't mean to get emotional, but when I think about how many firsts we had in just the first 3 months of this year, how many people who never had a chance at leadership finally do, how many black justices have been appointed, black female justices at that, by the Biden Harris administration. You don't see our news talking about that. You don't see them talking about how diverse and open this administration is. No, they want to say, oh, they're making too many compromises. Well, when you have a Senate that is still split 50-50, you either compromise or you lose it all. Some of you don't know basic civics, but we don't have a dictatorship. So when you elect a president, you're electing basically somebody who can put out an executive order. It doesn't mean it gets followed. We are individual states still governed by state policies. The federal government can set as many things as they want up, but if the states don't want to do that, as we've seen in Texas, it doesn't matter. And this is why it is so important to stop listening to the naysayers. Turn off the CNNs, the MSNBCs, heaven forbid if you watch Fox News for any reason, and start digging for actual facts. You have the internet. Some of you are on here, you know more about 90 Day Fiance than you know about your own local reps. And I'm calling you out now. I'm not saying you can't multitask and do both, but why aren't you? I bet y'all you can tell me anything about a real housewife. I don't know fuck all about any of that nonsense. But you can't tell me who runs your school boards. You can't tell me what justice is under you. But you will ham-haw, suck teeth, and get upset when you find out that corrupt justices are sending black children as young as 8 to jail in Tennessee for witnessing fights. This is the stuff that has been revealed just this year. And if you want things to change, if you're sick of stuff like this going on, you have to be the one to help. And people want to talk about voter suppression. And I understand the need to address voter suppression. I lived in the South. I remember in Florida, the ridiculous lines. I remember in Georgia, the ridiculous lines. When I moved to North Carolina, not so much because I lived in an almost all white area, which really opened my eyes to how ridiculous it is. The double standard in even supposed blue areas is not fair or funny. But if we want to address that, those of you who aren't targeted need to get out and vote. I will not stop saying that. The people who are the victims of voter suppression are people of color. Black people, Asian voters in Georgia had thousands of votes cast out for ridiculous reasons. Kemp is doing everything he can, and he's running scared because Stacey Abrams is gunning for his job. And if you want that loser out of his position, if you want the gerrymandering and redistricting that's going to hurt people like Lucy McBath and other senators that are trying to do right for our country, you've got to vote. White Democrats, you have had way too much luxury. You have had way too much. You think that you could just stay home. You have to be motivated off your couches. You need to be wooed. You need to be courted. It has to be the perfect candidate for you. Every time we've had a candidate that would have done good for us, you have looked at them as if they were fake. I will never forgive you for allowing us to have 4 years where that rodeo show clown is our president. And you can bring up, oh, there was Russian interference with it. No, even with all of that, the majority of yous play with fire. Because if you had turned out the way you should have, we could have pushed past even those shenanigans. And it's about time somebody said it. Because so many of you want to keep relitigating and talking about, oh, it would have been better under Warren. No, it wouldn't have. Elizabeth Warren, whether you want to hear this or not, couldn't hold a candle to Hillary Clinton. You know it, but you don't want to admit it. And you got to stop. I don't know what it is about Mima that got to some of you under your skin, made you feel like she was the one. I can't, you know, fault you on wanting to support a Democrat, but when a Democrat is caught in obvious lies over and over and over again, when she pulls stunts that are not only racially insensitive, but just makes you question where her mind's at in the first place, I have to wonder about the people who are still diehard for her. When she's out there doing interviews about, well, why aren't we taking care of student loans? Bitch, you're a senator. Why aren't you drafting legislation about student loan policy? You're supposed to be a wonk. Why aren't you wonking some legislation? I find it very telling the people who want to push Elizabeth Warren as anything but a standard placeholder politician. And I know this isn't going to win me any fans. It'll probably get the blood and tooth people mad at me, the ones I haven't blocked, and I blocked a whole lot of you. But you need to hear this. She was not the one. And I'm not going to waste my energy propping up somebody who wears a front and a fake. I don't even want to get into the fact that she claimed a heritage that wasn't hers. There's so many of us who actually have blood connections can't even claim because you have to be recognized by a tribe. Some of us have severed ties that we can never replace because our ancestors are dead, because they were taken as kids, re educated. She got to claim something that was never hers. Got to go to Harvard because of it, restricting women of color who could have been something. She spent most of her life as a Republican. And yet you thought that what? She was on the same par as somebody who actually worked a whole life for this party? Good, bad, and in between? Taking personal jabs? The kind of person who shows up at a black church not with a camera crew, but because she knew that was where she wanted to be. The kind of people who have a foundation that had an A+ rating. Hillary Clinton did the deed, and she was called fake. And you're trying to do the same thing to Kamala, and I'm getting sick of it. But you'll accept somebody like Woo Woo Crystal's Marion. Woo Woo Wilmer, as I like to call her. Or Tulsi, I was literally in the toenail eating cult. Y'all need to really introspect why any Dem who you never really hear about until they want to pull something like this is your pick. And yet, a Dem who has a track record of hard work, it's so easy for you to slander. That is one of the things we really have to combat, especially with the work we have to do in 22. It is not going to be easy when I have so many people still clinging to factions that y'all need to get over it. We swore Biden in on the 20th. Any objections you had to that? Too late. And instead of being bitter and messing things up, impeding the path to progress that we have laid out, the historical path that we are laying out, the appointments that would have never happened under the last fucking guy. You need to be doing your part to ensure that our state and local legislator works with this federal government. Because I am sick and tired of seeing families go hungry. I am sick and tired of seeing families die. To like half this list is gun violence. It is ridiculous how many shootings have happened in this year alone. And we need legislation that will restrict the access to assault weapons, especially. But we can't get that when we have idiots running our local politics game. You got people like Ted Cruz, who in February when that horrible storm hit Texas and killed a bunch of people, including kids, decided to amscray to Cancun. And then he couldn't even man up. He blamed his daughters. Oh, they wanted me on the plane with them. You're a fucking liar, Ted Cruz. And I cannot wait till you lose your seat. He's not a man. He is a fucking mole rat in a cheap suit who, when he grows a beard, he looks even worse. You think you can't make a face look weirder? And then you put a weird salt and pepper beard on it because that's the only way he can remotely try to feel macho. He ran when Texas needed him to a country that he wouldn't spit on them if they were on fire to let out normally. Every bad thing he could think about Mexico comes out of Ted Cruz's mouth, just like every other racist ass GOPer. But he fled right to Cancun when his state was in trouble. This is why I say we have to get rid of these guys. They cannot be representatives anymore. They have shown the lack of care and empathy and the pure malice of their whole entire beings. Texas power grid was so ridiculous too. Having that much energy gone for days, having people having to freaking literally light fires just to cook. It was like they went back to the pioneer days. And people were dying in their homes. Pipes were bursting. And I know we're in the day and age of TikTok and people were being cutesy with it, but there is nothing cute about freezing to death. I live in a cold state again now, y'all. It is not fun to be cold. And I can't think of a fate worse than being in your home, the place that's just supposed to be safe, and having everything just stop working and just slowly feeling your life frozen out of you. And then the people who are supposed to take care of things, the people who you elect to get government aid, to get on the power companies, instead take their family and amscray because they're set. They don't care about you. And unfortunately, the GOP is that effective of a death cult that Ted Cruz will still have his loyal minions. But there are enough Democrats in Texas that could show him the door. If you're tired of him, if you're tired of Abbott, who is going to come up in this list, because he's done some fuckery too, you have to be willing to do your part. Exactly. Beans. Oh, Ohio. There are so many states with representatives who should really be out of their job. Freaking Jim Jordan is just so disgusting. The fact that he covered up the Ohio State scandal, the fact that so many people, including our Times person of the month, and not that Musk guy, I don't count him, Simone Biles, was one of the victims of Nassar. One of the people that Jordan covered up. And it just kills me as somebody who survived sexual assault, knowing that these people are being representative of what? He doesn't do anything for his constituent. He's another one who should be out of a job. And it's on us. The can't somebody else do it attitude has to go out the door in 2021. It is on us to get things right. For real. I'm gonna move out of January because there's a lot more like entertainment stuff in this list, and I legit don't care about that. Like the only thing I will say about January was Biden got right to work undoing a lot of this stuff that last fucking guy did. For real, he was like pen to paper the next day on it. He got us back into the WHO. He got us back into the Paris Accord. He repealed so much, and there's still so much to do. People are getting upset because of the stuff that that idiot did last year, including the environmental crap, including allowing cubs to be hunted and things that we shouldn't have allowed. And I know you want Biden to be able to do it all in less than a year, but that's not how this works. He has a lot of cleanup and a lot of appointees that are still being approved so that we can get stuff done. But he, in February, still managed to help get the American Rescue Act signed and planned. It was a $1.9 trillion COVID package. When COVID first started ravaging our country, we had to push to get a stimulus bill. And then Trump acted like the pennies he gave us was supposed to be enough. There were families that were literally going to be put on the street, but he didn't care. And there are still families struggling. But thanks to this CARE Act, thanks to the tax credit, we were able to keep afloat these last few months. I was able to buy my son a laptop for school because a lot of us had switched to homeschooling and virtual learning. And it wasn't just because of COVID, it was because of the several shootings that we're going to talk about that happened this year, too. Freaking Andrew Cuomo, too, because this was a big one in February. I get it, y'all. I grew up in New York City. I've said it before. I was born in New York City. Mario Cuomo was the governor for a lot of my life. I had respect for the Cuomo family. So it hurt when Andrew Cuomo's accusations started to come out. But you know what I wasn't going to do? I wasn't going to act like because Andrew Cuomo's a Democrat whose father I was fond of meant he was untouchable. That's another mindset that was way too prevalent these last few years that a lot of you Dems need to stop. It is not okay to sexually harass somebody. It is not okay to say, well, he could still do his job. I don't understand why you're doing this. That attitude needs to stop. It is shameful the amount of people who are angry that how dare they take Cuomo, who is abusing his power, out of a position of power. Some of you really just want us to be the GOP with a friendly, diverse mask, and that's not going to happen. Not on Black women's watch. But the accusations against him started in February. There was just so much going on. The George Floyd police trial of Derek Chauvin began in March, and it was really hard for a lot of us. Last year, one of the things that hit me, it was right around my birthday too, seeing that video. And I remember making the Stop Killing Us response to that. And I just couldn't believe how many people shared that video. I get it, it's social media, spreading information is the thing. I'm tired of seeing Black pain. I'm tired of guys like Sean King using our videos of us being humiliated, arrested just for being in the space, murdered. But something about what happened to George Floyd was just, it was too much. The look on Derek Chauvin's face, staring, he knew he was being recorded. He honestly did not think he was going to see justice. He thought he was in the right for what he did. And that was the part that broke me. That and hearing George Floyd cry out for his mother as a mom, how can you not see your own child when you're a parent? How can you not think as a human being nobody should die like that? And that trial, as much as I didn't want to keep tuning in, as much as I didn't want to keep reliving that scenario, I kept thinking about his daughter. I kept thinking about his family who are left behind to pick up the pieces. And it was a rough year because it was far from the only trial that really opens your eyes to the dual America. The fact that there are people that get away with literal murder when our kids can't even wear hoodies. And I want it to stop. And I need those of you who think you care, who say you care, who put the blue wave emojis in your Twitter, who go to protest with your pink hats, to organize and get us state legislators who want to do right by us. Because if you want police reform, if you want better, we have to vote for it. And Derek Chauvin, he's not the only one on the force like that. There are countless things. Breonna Taylor's murders got away with it. The guys who killed Elijah McCain are still on the force. His family got a settlement this year, but that's not going to bring back their baby. He was a beautiful child who lost his life to a police system who still think that we're disposable. And if you want that to change, we have to make sure we have legislators who see us as humans, no matter what our identity is. And it's exhausting that I have to keep drilling this home. But this year just kept reinforcing to me that if I don't keep saying it, some of you are going to become numb. And I can't afford your apathy anymore. We have lost so many. And we were losing people before this pandemic. We were losing people to gun violence. Fuckers going into schools and churches and movie theaters and just taking lives. We had an asshole here in Georgia. And I say here in Georgia like I'm still in Georgia, but still. 8 Americans, because some people wanted to talk about the massage parlor and they were Asian. They were American citizens doing their jobs who lost their lives to a racist white guy with access to firearms. And that is how it should have been reported in the news. But instead, they wanted to talk about homeboy having a bad day. They barely gave the victims any respect because that's how it is to be othered in America. And I'm sick of it. I want this to stop. It hurts, y'all. It's tiring. Their families have to have a holiday without them. And it's exhausting that there are so many people who can do better for all of us who still say things like, I have to be motivated. This person ain't pure enough for me. And yet you will stand fake people who just want a spot. People like that squad. People who waste infrastructure votes because they're not getting student loan stuff without thinking that once we pass infrastructure and get more representatives, you could be designing an actual bill for student loan reform. But oh no, that's too much work. You would much rather look pretty for Instagram. We have to stop electing influencers. This is not a job for somebody who just wants to show up for a paycheck. If you want better for America, you have to elect representatives who will get better. We need more Lauren Underwood, y'all. We need more Sharice Davises. We need more Lucy McBaths. We need Sawells and Harrisons. We need Stacey Abrams leading Georgia. And bless you, sweetie. What we don't need is always on camera. Or Rashida Tlaib. Or any of these people who will whine to whoever has a camera. Cori Bush, miss, I caught a baby like a football at a protest. They threw them at me. That bitch is, I say this as a legit crazy person. There is something really off about Cori Bush. Very off about her stories and everything about her. Yet you are allowing her to waste a seat. And everybody wants to talk about Manchin and Cinema. Those two might feel like wasted spots because the media and social media have made them boogeymen, but they vote at least. And you want to talk about Manchin holding up stuff? He's in West fucking Virginia. I've only been to West Virginia a few times, mostly just to drive through it, thank goodness. It is not the state that you want to try to have the real diverse thoughts. Let's just put it that way. And Manchin skirts a fine line. And if you don't want him to have power, instead of worrying about getting rid of his seat, because I would rather have a Democrat who knows how to talk to the hillbillies than any old idiot that will be even worse. We need to focus on states that need a revamp, that can have a revamp. Looking at you, Florida, Val Demings needs to be a representative there. Looking at you, Texas, Beto for governor. Looking at you, freaking Stacey Abrams better be getting sworn in as Georgia's governor because Kemp is already tweeting scared. That was the last thing I seen before I went on my Twitter break. Him talking about, oh, if Abrams had been in charge, yous would have been restricted going out, which is good. Do you not see how COVID ravaged the state of Georgia? All the points he was trying to make against Stacey Abrams should have been wins for anybody who believes in the Democratic cause. And you ain't got to worry about black voters. We have stood in long lines. We have dealt with Kemp's shenanigans. But I'm talking to those of you who aren't hit by voter suppression again, because I have to keep reminding you that you're not restricted. That some of you have ease of access voting measures, and you need to exercise that. Don't just say vote like black women and put it in your bio and put a hashtag of it and don't do it. We got work to do in 2022, y'all. And I want to see all of those naysayers shutting up, because I'm telling you, it's frustrating. It's frustrating seeing grown people speculate on next year's midterms. Already talking about because they know in 2010, because people are short term. Y'all are like the microwave with your needs. Everything's got to be done fast. Oh, they got to solve all the problems that happened in the last 4 years in 9 months, or else I'm not going to be bothered. And that is why you have so many people predicting that the midterms are going to, oh, there's going to be a slaughter for the. No, it's not. Because every time you want to think Biden isn't doing something fast enough, I want you to think of what we had last year. All the deaths, all the corruption, the fact that money that could have went to help more families went into the pockets of Trump cronies. PPE loans that were going out to people that didn't even have businesses. All of that corruption, on top of the fact that he allowed this pandemic into our country willy-nilly. And then he allowed his cult to do things like inject themselves with bleach and horse dewormer, because that is the level of devoted dummy they want their party followers to be. That is what we're up against. So anytime you start to think, I don't feel like voting, what's it to me? Think about what the other side is willing to do. They're willing to freaking inject dewormer into their system. I'm not saying the Democrats have to be cult like, because I really get annoyed with those that want us to be just like the GOP. We can't. The GOP is disgusting. I don't want to be anything like them. But what we can do is our basic civic duty. It is so ridiculous. It is insane to me that people don't think on this level and then want to complain. And it's just like, I don't understand why you think things can just be wrapped up in a neat little package. But I'm going to tell you this much. If you want to see worse than Trump, play around next year. Play around and mess it up for all of us, and you'll see. We had fascism light because Trump was incompetent. McConnell is old. If this had happened 20 years ago, when there were a lot more players that are thankfully no longer here, we really would have been in trouble. Y'all can't keep playing around with our democracy. That was a test run for the GOP. They already know they've got loyal foot soldiers for fuckery. And we are the front line against that. And I need you to understand that. I don't care if you like our current administration. They're not your best friends. They're the president and vice president of the United States. I care that the alternative has cost us way too much. As some of us already go through life in this country worried about being the next hashtag, worried about our civil rights being restricted by our gender, by whether or not we can carry a child or not, by who we love. And we're exhausted. And we would like to be able to tackle the stuff that's directly affecting our communities without your apathy causing us more trauma and unnecessary chaos. So I am saying this to you. because I know this is supposed to be a review, and hopefully next week's full on review will be a little bit more coherent. But I'm just so upset every time I think about some of the things we went through this year. So many shootings. There was just too many. School shootings, a supermarket shooting in Boulder, 10 dead at a supermarket in Boulder, Colorado. It doesn't make sense. And the only reason why the media had a bit of a field day before they moved on to the next big story was because the shooter was a man that I believe was Arabic descent. Because whenever that happens, oh yeah, we can give wall to wall coverage of this. There's no lone gunman, lone wolf mental health talk with that. When you're othered in America and you do something like that, oh no, then it's the time to talk about violence and how some cultures embrace violence. The most violent culture I've ever had to deal with is a white evangelical in this country. They are quick to temper, quick to grab a gun, quick to settle things with violence, as we've seen on January 6th, as we've seen in that Atlanta spa shooting, as we will see in several other instances this year. Exactly, Beans. It is exhausting not being able to call it out. And I know that some white people they use want to get to defense. Not all, not me. If it ain't you, why are you even saying that? I've never understood the not all mentality at all. As a black woman, knowing that I was going to be placed in a monolith whether I wanted to or not, I learned early on not to say not all. I know not every black person can get my voucher. Not all skin folk are my kinfolk. So I never understood white people, especially supposed white Dems, that the first thing out y'all's mouth when we talk about racism, sexism, any of the isms that affect marginalized people. Not me, not all. I have to come in and tell you, not me. I've been there. I didn't ask for your resume, and I ain't got a medal or a cookie for you, ma'am. I do not understand that need. And that needs to die in 2021 too, because it is exhausting dealing with that over and over again. It's one of the reasons why I took a social media break, because it's just, it gets to you. I don't want to be on there arguing with people. And I don't want to have to keep telling grown people that if you're not the problem, like you think you're not the problem, you don't need to jump to the defense of the people who aren't, because you're not all enough of you. Enough. This list is full of angry white guys who took a gun and ended lives. Some of them will hopefully face prosecution for what they did because they took enough lives. But later on in the year, a little motherfucker who shouldn't have been able to cross state lines with a gun, but did, took two lives and injured another, got away with murder. So please spare me the not alls. I don't have it in me for this anymore. To be nice to people who have to come and say that. So many, like 13-year-old Adam Toledo died to the cops. There's just so many police shootings. It is exhausting. And the infrastructure plan it was launched in March. And because those six goons, those justice dems, who are they seeking justice for? That's what I'd like to know. Who are they seeking justice for? They're not seeking justice for those of us who are struggling. Cori Bush did that whole "I'm in the camp with cheese doodles on the Capitol steps" for rent moratorium. Still hasn't drafted up a bill for rent moratorium and voted against the infrastructure bill that could help those of us who are struggling with things like rent and bills. This is why I say we have to vet and we have to get representatives who want to do the job. The time has come to weed out this rot and start electing officials who want to do the job. I'm tired of seeing people who are more known for their stunts than their acts. And I'm tired of people who should be more known for their actions because they have a long history of doing their job, a history of people who are helped by them, touched by their work, tireless work. being called frauds or fakes, or, oh, she bought a $300 pot. This is what we're up against, y'all. And a lot of it is ingrown. Some of you are so used to internalized misogyny that you will repeat things. And like I called out the last Bonnet Chronicles, some of you are already talking about, oh, Kamala should run for Supreme Court justice. And I will remind you again, you don't run for an appointed position. She is the vice president, and we will be calling her Madam President. I couldn't believe the amount of nonsense on social media lately. The trial against the idiots who tried to kidnap the governor of the state I'm living in, Governor Whitmer, started as well this year. Because last year, a bunch of yahoos in a Facebook group plotted to coordinate kidnapping, killing on camera an elected official. This is the level of depravity the GOP is sunk to. If you ever think, why does it matter? Why should I vote? I want you to think about how many people on the other side, because I'm calling them the other side. I know people are like, oh, you shouldn't indulge in tribalism, shouldn't indulge in us versus them. When them are plotting to kill an elected official because she told them that I am going to place restrictions to keep COVID from ravishing our communities, and that was the main reason those idiots wanted to harm our governor. She dared to put their safety first. That is the logic. I don't want the government in my life, but the government should help me out whenever I need them to. That is what they want. They want limited government unless they need a handout. But oh, don't let a black mother need help. Oh, that's the bad kind of handout. It is that twisted double standard that makes me not understand how anybody who isn't GOP doesn't understand how dangerously twisted the GOP are. And if you are tired of this, if you're tired of stuff like the HB 1570 bill, which my friend Case was heartbroken. She lives in Arkansas. She has to deal as an Arkansas Dem with so much. But having the state push a bill that really restricts transgender teens from being able to get the medicine they need to help them, having surgery with their parents' permission. They are doing everything they can to be cruel to anybody they deem different, and it has to stop. And if you want legislation like that to be a thing of the past, we have to be the ones to stop it. Because several states legalize weed. I see that gets people to turn out. Put weed on the ballot, everybody wants to be a voter all of a sudden. But when they're attacking children whose only crime is trying to be the gender that they identify as, and you turn your back instead of organizing so that these idiots can stop harming us, come on, y'all. It is just tiring. And the Capitol got attacked again. In April, there was a car attack. An idiot rammed into police. But I thought Blue Lives Matter to those people. Not when they're not being foot soldiers for them. The guy ended up getting shot by the Capitol Police too. It is just a mess. And Biden still, throughout all of this, was doing his best to try to rally the money to not only deal with infrastructure, but deal with social issues because he knew that people were struggling. It's just so exhausting. You have freaking Matt Gaetz, who I said earlier, there's an ethics committee still investigating, and I know some of you think that this stuff goes fast, but he's a pedophile. I'm not gonna freaking mince words. You sleep with a minor, you are a child predator, and they are investigating him for sex trafficking. This is the kind of crap that the GOP allows as its ranks. If you don't think your vote's important, think about all those people who helped put that pedophile in charge, who probably allowed him access to young teens. This is why we have to organize around this fuckery. Durante Wright was murdered in Minnesota. Minnesota has been a hotbed of stuff. Cop swore she didn't know that she was grabbing her gun. She thought she was grabbing a taser because obviously her training didn't allow her to understand the difference between the two. And he's one of many. He's one of many hashtags that I'm tired of seeing. You had the Indianapolis shooting at the FedEx facility. It is so tiring. Chicago in April also released the shooting of the 13-year-old Adam Toledo, which was covered up by their mayor, which broke the hearts of a lot of us because we were supporters of her. There were so many variants that went on this year, too. It is insane to me. Micaiah Bryant, another young black child, murdered in Ohio by a police officer. It is exhausting reading so many of these things. And I don't have much more time. And like I said, this is part one. Part two is going to be the rest of the year because the rest of the year was just as crazy. And yeah, Beans, Nestor, that was just such a weird time too because a lot of people took the time to make inappropriate jokes about Nestor. He's a child, and more than likely he was groomed by Gates. Even if he wasn't a sexual grooming, he probably was used to help get other young girls and young boys involved in this stuff. So I'm gonna need grown people to stop making these people your punchlines. It's not right. Being groomed is not okay. I don't think people understand what it's like to have somebody older than you controlling your life like that. When I was with my ex, I was a teenager still. I was adult, but I still a teen behind my age. And he was way older than I was. And it was a control dynamic. People like Matt Gates use Nestor for control. He uses a lot of young people for control because we don't know any better when we're young. And we think, oh, this older person must want to take care of me. And they use you until there's almost nothing left. And it's sickening that this man is a U.S. representative. And people are like distancing themselves from him because they know there's no coming back from this. So I really hope Florida is organizing to replace him and not with another worse pick. We're almost done with this though, y'all. We're on to May. I'm looking over some of this stuff. Colorado, 7 people died at a birthday party to another shooting. And I'm with Moms on Demand. If you don't follow Shannon Watts on Twitter, why aren't you? She has been working so hard for years through so many tragedies, from Aurora to Sandy Hook. She has been a constant source of trying to fight for justice, for gun reform, for safety for our babies. So I've been following Shannon. I donate when I have a little extra to Moms Demand Action because I really, as a mom who doesn't want to see her kid in a coffin, I just don't understand why gun reform and gun safety legislation isn't on everybody's breath. It's, I'm only in the May, and there's been so many mass shootings this year. It has to stop, y'all. Matt Gates' associate, Joe Greenberg, in May, pled guilty to 6 charges of sex trafficking. It is just a mess. We had a lot to do with COVID, too. And then we end with, yet again, a Hialeah mass shooting. It left 2 dead and 20 injured. And I hate to end on a shooting, but it has to. Because it's become such an American norm. Getting from crying all loogie. I hate this. It's become such an American norm that it's not shocking anymore to say, oh, there was a shooting this month. I believe, honestly, looking at this list, that almost every month, if not every month that I read, has some kind of mass issue gun violence. It has to stop. I'm going to get ready to wrap this up, though, y'all. It has been a crazy hour. And like I said, that's why I broke this up into part one and part two. Because I knew there was so much to review this year, and there was just so much to deal with calling out the squad and calling out Dems who aren't being suppressed, who make it harder for those of us who do have to deal with suppression tactics. And I will be back next week, even though it's Christmas Eve. I plan on doing the Christmas Eve and the New Year's Eve Bonnet Chronicles. I don't know how festive I'm going to get because I'm not a big holiday person. I've made it clear I like my quiet, but I will definitely be here. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Beans. I really do like the quiet of this holiday. I love me and my family. We got our gifts ready. We're just gonna have a nice, quiet Christmas day. New Year's Eve has always been a day of rest for us anyway. The most we do is take down the tree and decorations. But I definitely will be back next week. And then thank you, honey, for subscribing again. And I want to thank everybody who subscribed. I want to thank everybody who has donated to Carl's house, who has just helped me out, even when I wasn't putting stuff out there, who's asked about kiddo. You act more like family to me than the people I actually share genetic ties to. And I'm still trying to get used to it. It's been hard for me to accept kindness. I've always been leery because kind acts for me always was followed up with cruelty. So I really do want to thank those of you who are just kind with no strings attached. And I know that there are a few of you out there watching this that understand what I mean by that. And I'm really working on it. But I do thank you. I know that I come across closed off, especially when some of you will hit me up in DMs offering stuff. And it's because I don't know how to react to kindness. I'm not used to it still. I drive Greg crazy with that because, his family and him are kind people. They like helping because they can, and I'm not used to it. And it's kind of like when you take in a rescue animal that has been abused constantly and you just want to show them love and affection, but they're afraid. I have to learn how not to be afraid of kindness. So I hope you can bear with me with that. What are you doing, dear? Pointing at you. Oh. But I'm going to get ready to wrap this up. I want to thank you all, and I will definitely see y'all next week. And exactly. There is just so much that a lot of us process with this. So just be mindful of your own mental health and take care. I will definitely see y'all next week with the second half of this year in review and more talk because I'm sure there's a lot going on and a lot more that will be going on before I get to it. But my notes are full. And really, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see y'all next week.
You know what helps mental health?
What? Oh, for peace sake. You just really want to... I'll see you all next week. Good night, y'all.